techs love to fix stuff, right? They're wired to fix it. That's what they want to do, get their hands dirty and fix it. That's what gets them their joy, their purpose. So anything that they do that gets in the way of that, that frustrates them, creates animosity towards the fixing and the job. So if we can remove that frustration by giving them the tools and information they need when they need it, not only are they faster, but they're happier, and happier is better always.
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today I'm joined by two very special guests from an amazing and revolutionary platform service for those of us in the trades that I think is going to be really, really powerful. You've probably heard of them. And today we will hope to bring some additional value in diving into, most notably, how we can impact and understand the pain of our field professionals in the field. What is it that we can do as leaders to, one, relate to their struggle, and two, provide them resources that can hopefully make their lives easier, allow them to take care of more customers. So without any further ado, would like to welcome the Bluon crew, Peter and Logan from Bluon. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having us. Super appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Chad.
To get us kicked off, Peter, you want to give kind of the background of Bluon and kind of how it came to be, and then we can kind of go from there if that works.
So it kind of starts with my background, which is a bit unusual. So I am a physicist by trade. I spent first part of my life at Columbia University as a physicist, working on fusion research with the folks at Princeton and the feds and all that good stuff. But that came to a screeching halt in the summer of 1991, a long time ago, because the feds cut the program. And so I was what they referred to as an unemployed physicist in Manhattan, which is not a good place to be. So long story short, I ended up having to get a job to pay the bills, ended up landing in this random real estate company for the summer I thought it was going to be. Turned out I ended up staying there for 18 years because I looked around and these guys were all making a ton of money. And but basically spent a big time in my life revolutionizing the way you do deals in commercial real estate, and brought a whole level of analytics and like a different aspect to it. Like the management consulting world entered commercial real estate, which historically was kind of like an old boys club. Your golf buddy represented you in your $1 billion transaction, which made no sense. And so kind of brought that skill set to that world. And has had a great run. It was a lot of fun. But then I woke up one day and I was about to turn 40 at the time, and I was like, man, how did I become a real estate guy? What happened? Like, I was a physics guy, and all of a sudden I'm a real estate guy. So I kind of had a midlife crisis and left that world to the chagrin of my team and my customers. But it was the right move. Sort of left that world, took some time off, jumped back into physics. Got sort of back into that world. Really wanted to get back into like R&D and interesting things in the physics world, the real world. And so one of the first ideas I came across was the pre-thought to Bluon was this guy in a garage who was messing around with some refrigerants and thought he could create a better mousetrap than all the other R22 replacements. And me being in the commercial real estate world, I was like, oh, that's it's a really interesting idea, because knowing from my perspective, all the other ones at the time were just not great, right? We're either compatibility issues, capacity issues, issues with break-in equipment or environmental issues. So long story short, ended up teaming up with him, who ended up actually ended up bringing in new people, but started to figure out how to create a new refrigerant. This is back in 2013. So that's when Bluon was born. So Bluon was actually born, believe it or not, as a chemical R&D company. Guys in white coats, in a lab, messing around with refrigerants, trying to figure out, can we do something better than the historical norms out of the big boys? And we actually ended up creating a hell of a refrigerant between 2013, 2016, went through all of the EPA, ASHRAE, insanity, which is a whole other podcast. So ended up going in the market in 2016, 2017 with this new product. Had a bunch of commercial real estate guys ready to go with retrofit projects. And everybody was like, woo, let's go. And we ran into the brick wall, and that is HVAC technicians. Because, as I always say, they can't say yes, but they sure as hell can say no. And they'd been burned, is in the commercial sector at the time, have been burned so many times with other refrigerants and breaking up compressors and breaking $1 million IntelliPacks and just not even wanting no part of it. So we were at a roadblock. We have this new refrigerant. We spent a ton of money on it. We have a lot of demand, and we have to convince 325,000 technicians across the country to not be skeptical or to want to advocate for the product, which is daunting. And so the idea we came up with, which is where this whole thing starts with the current story, is, well, the issue with refrigerants is these techs don't know what to do. No one gave them an instruction manual on how to convert this unit from R22 or whatever to TDX20 or R458A. And so we created a database, the first of its kind, and we were naive, which was lucky. We didn't realize how big of a task it was. We're like, how many models can there be? 10,000, 20,000? I mean, like 20 million, but we didn't know that at the time. And so we bit off more than we could chew, but that was a good thing. So we tackled about 40,000 R22 units with retrofit instructions. But when we did that, we put all the manuals and the wiring diagrams and the service bulletins and the troubleshooting guides and error codes in the database. That's how we got the data. And then we put it out in an app for the world to use in late 2018 and 2019. And we were blown away by the uptake of the app, by the use of it. And not for the retrofit instructions, ironically, but for a brand agnostic encyclopedia of models, of manuals and diagrams and troubleshooting guides and error codes in one place. So everybody having access to that in one place was the big eye opener. And then us realizing how much thirst for help and support these techs needed and wanted was really eye-opening and remarkable, because we had 100,000 techs in a blink of an eye, right, using this thing within a couple of years, and that's just unheard of in HVAC. No, techs don't adopt a technology, and so to see this rapid adoption of technology, and then we added tech support, and even seeing that rapid adoption was really remarkable. And we ended up steering the whole business from chemical R&D over to software. And since 2020, we've basically been a software company trying to figure out how to monetize this desperate thirst for support and data that technicians need. So that origin story led us into this brand agnostic data acquisition, where we started to gather all the information on all the units out there. Now we have about 20 million in the database. And so we're the only game in town where you have a historical database going back to the 80s of manuals, parts, replacement parts, tech specs, everything about that model that is known to man in one place with an easy search. And that idea of having a brand agnostic sort of database would never have occurred to us if we weren't in a desperate situation trying to save a chemical company to give people instructions in a brand agnostic way to use our refrigerant.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's so interesting. And I think it kind of paints the picture of a lot of people's stories, right? You start out trying to solve one problem, and if you've got your ears open and kind of your antennas out, oftentimes we find that there's bigger problems, especially in this particular industry, that we can solve for. You've given us a little bit of background on what Bluon is, or how it kind of transformed into what it is. How does it help a technician today?
Yeah, so really, we help it in two ways, and each way has a little bit of a differential. So basically, we're in the business of giving HVAC technicians, residential and commercial, data and support when they need it in the field in a very fast and efficient way. So whether that means information about that unit, whether that means parts, whether that means replacement parts, compatibility, whether that means actual tech support, talking to a senior tech, or an AI tech support, which we've created, which I'll get into in a second. So basically what we are in the business of is providing brand agnostic, extremely relevant, very accurate information and support to that tech when they need it. And what that does is it saves an average tech about 5 hours a week. So you would know, Chad, putting 5 hours to work per tech is a massive game changer relative to your bottom line. So we're a time machine for contractors. We basically are giving billable hours back. The average tech spends 65% of their day doing non-billable activities. So that's a travesty. And so we want to bring that number to, at least 45% billable, which we can do just with our technology. And you start doing the numbers, if you save the average tech 4 hours a week, that's $50,000 of increased profit per tech per year. If they take, about 40% of those, convert them to billable hours. So it's a massive benefit. And so what we really developed is two big assets. We've got this giant database, which I've gone into how we started it, which is one of one. There's nothing like it in the industry. It's proprietary. It can't be replicated because it has historical data that's not even available anymore. And then we have an AI, which is us being extremely lucky or clairvoyant or both, because we had the biggest R&D project or crowdsourcing project ever for 5 years in HVAC, where we had 30 of the best service techs in the industry doing tech support calls. Logan knows, he was part of that team. And so we answered 135,000 tech support calls over a 4-year period of time from everything you can imagine, from the mini split to the 1,000-ton chiller and everything in between, every question you can imagine. We took all that information, we transcribed it, and we put it into a large language model, which is how AIs work. And now the universe, our customers, can access that wisdom directly through the AI. So any question that's ever been asked is actually feeding that thing. So if you go to our AI, you can ask it pretty much anything about any model out there, and it's going to give you a damn accurate answer of how to go about diagnosing or fixing that unit. So those are our two main assets: this huge database of equipment and techs, equipment specs, parts, replacement parts, and then this AI, which is a incredible support tool to let technicians ask questions in a very open forum. You don't have to worry about retribution or the service manager thinking they're stupid. Ask anything they want, get the right answers in real time, and save time as they move forward in the contracting.
Yeah, and the even bigger insight inside that too, that's such a big game changer is being able to actually quantify where the team's needing help now and be able to provide that data back to the contractor so we can help strengthen the teams and make them even stronger technically. Because moving into the technical realm of it, we get a lot of technicians that are younger and more novice, but hedging the knowledge from these older guys has always been the most difficult thing, because older technicians are one of two breeds. They want to keep all their knowledge together and just be their own technician, or they want to share it with the younger ones. So now we're able to actually quantify that and make the team even better.
Yeah, it's a really cool point, because one of the things we recognize in answering tech support calls for all those years is technicians are going to spend 10, 20 minutes trying to figure it out themselves before they want to talk to a human, because they have a little bit of shame and they don't want to admit they couldn't get it right. And so that's a lot of time lost, right, in the field. But now with the AI, they ask it right away because they don't have any retribution or fear of looking stupid or whatever. All humans are the same. So what that means is we have an insight into their true issues of where they lack training or need some help. And now we've struck this balance where we never rat out the technician that asked the question, but we aggregate all those questions into one thing and let the service manager, the owner, say, hey, you're 20 techs. Here's the top things that keep coming up in their AI support. You may want to look into training them in that. So it's a great balance of the technicians are not, accountable for the questions they're asking, but you as an owner get great insight into where they might need help. So it's this really awesome tool that lets the guys get the information they need, but management know where that information is needed. And it's this really cool balance that we figured out.
Yeah, no, I think that's something interesting. You could probably add that to your model of how much you could save by how many times contractors have pointless trainings on something that the guys saw one time and someone raised their hand and said, I don't know how to do this. And so our next step is, well, let's just have a training on this, only for the guys to train on it for an hour. So you waste an hour of their productive time training on something that they may not see for another 6 months. Whereas in this space, we can target the training. I know that's what our L&D team is most excited about with Bluon, is being able to target the training. Can we get the data on what is actually going on out there so that then we can either get, a group of maybe 5 techs who, are younger and haven't seen this, but we're rolling into summer and all of a sudden we're seeing all of these things with, air conditioners. We don't need to train on the furnace or the boiler or the whatever it is. We can target that training right to that specific thing.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, these are things that we couldn't even have dreamed of. Like when we were first doing tech support, our biggest question was always how do you get this wisdom out of these guys' heads. We have these 30 guys who know everything, but how the hell do you get it out? They don't want to write it down. They're not going to do it. So we sort of stumbled on by recording all their conversations and how to get it all out of their heads. And now we have it all in this model. But one thing I was going to add to that thing you brought up, Chad, was, the younger techs don't learn like we learned, right? They learn by indexing, right? They don't want to memorize anything. They just want to know where to go find it, right? So they want to memorize the index instead of memorize the content. And so our tool really lets both sides of that fence operate. If you're a memorizer, it's the support tool. If you're an indexer, it's really fast access to whatever you need in real time, which I think the 20 to 25, 30-year-old techs really appreciate, because it's sort of how they navigate the world. They don't navigate by going to a class and memorizing. They navigate by indexing. So it's a really cool way to service both sides of that age divide in terms of how folks learn and operate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we think about it, I was just out riding with a tech last week. He's 21 years old. So most likely he was writing, papers with Chat GPT. That wasn't a thing. I wish it was back when I was in school. That would have been lovely. One of the things that I think you said that I'd like to dive into, because I feel like you guys are looking at AI in a very unique way. And I think AI can scare a lot of people, and it's like, oh, what's going on? But I think what you've said, I just want you to explore maybe a little bit of that to kind of unpack, how are you guys looking at AI, and how is it going to play out either with your product or, just maybe within the industry that you're seeing right now?
Well, I think you got to look at AI. The word AI is a big word, and it means a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, if we had one of our partners on here, Adam Curry, who's our AI godfather and is like 5 years ahead of everybody else, knows, he's really bleeding edge of AI. What we've done is what's called a large language model. So AI, when you think about it, isn't really this scary artificial intelligence. It's just a really giant data set of previously stated things that the AI is really good at knowing where to look to find the relevant information. And so it's all about the source material. So, if you go to ChatGPT and you ask it a very specific question about this, 116A Goodman condensing unit, it's going to give you some academic answer it found in a manual or a textbook. And it's not going to help the tech for shit. But if you have the right model like we do, so these are all actual tech-to-tech conversations about, hey, what about this? Check this, what about that? And so you get an actual practical answer of how a tech would tell you what to look for, what to check. So it's really all about that. And what an AI does is it's this really crazy math model to figure out which word follows which word based upon the familiarity with that question. So that's one thing to realize. AI is not that scary. It's just it's a better way of searching information and giving you an answer based on that search that sounds like a human. And we made it sound like a human. That's kind of the scary part, because it sounds too human-like. But in general, we're looking at it as a tool to provide technicians with a historical basis of understanding in a way that was not previously possible. Like, we could not get our 30 techs on the phone. It's not scalable, right? It's too expensive. It's not scalable. But to abstract their information through this Q&A transcription process, we've done it almost accidentally. We're not that smart. We didn't know we were doing it 5 years ago. But the result of it has been remarkable. I mean, Adam, he did this without even telling us about a year ago. He just started working on a project based on the transcriptions. And we all freaked out at how amazing it worked. But I think AI is a tool for techs, particularly because when you're a tech, I mean, you got to know you're a plumber, an electrician, you're a mechanic, you're a thermodynamic engineer, you're all these things baked into one, and you have to operate on, millions of different units that have different architecture. It's not for the faint of heart. So having somewhere where you can access that cumulative knowledge quickly in a specific answer is really the ball game on what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I know. I think that's, to your point, it's just a way to index and categorize information faster, much in the same way that Google was a hell of a lot better than the set of encyclopedias that we used to have on our bookshelf. And so, I think that's really critical, especially in a world where, the one complaint that we hear from our field professionals often is we ask them to do so much stuff. And a lot of that stuff, to your point that you made earlier, is not technical. It's all of the things that, as businesses become more complex and they scale, whether it's inventory or a form that we need to fill out so that we can create our own databases and different things like that, I think is critical. And I feel like it's one of the places where your tool allows them to just access that information quicker and, get to what it is that they truly love to do. One of the things that I know that Logan, you may be able to speak to this a little bit on the, I know one pain point for our guys is having to try to find the part. Like, what part goes in this piece of equipment? How does Bluon help with that?
So inside the database there, whatever models they're faced with in the field, they just go directly into the app, and within seconds, they type in the model number they're faced with. And we're going to pull up all the historical bill of materials list based off those OEM part numbers inside there for that piece of equipment. And now inside there with Bluon for Business, we also provide them with the knowledge of every known cross-reference, no matter if it's an OEM to OEM match, and then also OEM to aftermarket as well. So now the knowledge of a technician is greatly enhanced just by simply utilizing the tool on a day-to-day basis there.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Are they able to are they able to find that part somewhere?
Almost. Yeah, it's complicated, but we're working on it. Yeah, so basically the next generation will be, as you pull up that bill of materials and or that replacement cross-reference options, you'll be able to see availability based upon the distributors that are connected to us. And we're going to be connecting with about 55 different companies to do that, which will be a huge next step. So it's a bit of a nuance, but the technology exists now. It didn't exist 2 years ago. It was too difficult. But now with a lot of more standardization, we can do it. So we can view sort of everybody who's connected in a way that will give you that availability. What's really cool too with the cross-reference, because you have every known replacement, you almost always can find an option at your preferred distributor, right? Because there's going to be some aftermarket or some OEM cross that's going to work. So it kind of removes that brand limiting factor that you've been used to, right? You can go to Jim's Supply and you can get the Carrot, you can get the Train, you can get the Lennox, you can get the York. It's all, because of the cross-reference, you're going to find it. And that's a big bonus.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Our guys spend tons of time trying to find out where in the hell the part is, who has it. I feel like there's still lead time issues out there with replacement parts that we're still dealing with to a certain degree.
But a lot of that, Chad, is because they didn't know that part was also this part. And so it's because they weren't aware that it had 6 aliases. It's the same exact part, not a crossover. It's the exact same part, just has a different number on it. And that helps a lot. That knowledge allows them to, not be stuck, in a particular bill of materials.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, not only have we been having the trouble in the actual field, but they've also been having the same troubles behind the counter too. As that knowledge base of, age and time goes away, they're bringing in newer, younger people who don't know that those parts on the shelf are an actual compatible part to what your technician needs. So now that the technician's going to be able to see that, like Pete was saying, it doesn't matter what distributor you have your best relationship with. If they carry multiple brands, the odds are that you're going to be able to get that part in a very timely fashion just by simply utilizing the technology in front of you and saying, hey, I'm not calling in now to ask what you have in stock. I'm calling to tell you exactly what I need. And let's see, can I get it now? So that's really where the efficiency is coming into play on that side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where as a contractor, you can more so you can understate the amount of time that our technicians are not wasting, but just doing things in the only, I was talking to a technician and we were talking about calling around to find the price on a part and availability and all of this. And he's like, this part sucks. And I'm like, well, do you have another solution on how to do it? And he's like, well, no. And I go, well, then are we going to have to kind of agree that this is just one of those crappy parts of the job? And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. I was hoping that you'd have an answer. I'm like, well, no, that's what we're working towards. But it sounds like with some of your guys' resources, that could be something that could be, it's never going to be perfect, but could definitely be made easier via some of the technology and the availability of information.
And what very much so. What we're also doing, which is really cool, is we're working with distributors to bring our data into their search engine on their e-com site. So now when they type in model number X, it doesn't say no results. It shows the bill of materials and everything they sell that is an inventory that's compatible with that particular functional part. So now it makes e-com doable, right? Because before you had to know exactly what you wanted. And so e-com was kind of a dead end street unless you were super gifted tech. But now you just type in what you're looking at and it will take you to their inventory. So between the two things, we're taking away a lot of wasted time and ease of access.
Also, let's talk about the burden to the business. I mean, Chad, I know you can attest to this pretty frequently. I mean, how many trucks you got rolling down the road with a massive amount of inventory sitting on them? I mean, how many of those parts every day actually leave a job site and the technician didn't even know that he had the right part on the truck? He just didn't know how to actually reference it to find out. Same thing for your inventory if you're carrying a warehouse. I mean, if you have a large warehouse and you have those parts sitting there collecting dust, I mean, that's a lot of expense. So being able to help reduce that's a key thing there too.
Absolutely. One of the things I want to touch on, because I think it's so important, and you mentioned it earlier, and this is kind of pivoting from the logistics and all of this stuff and how it operates, and really diving into kind of that field professional kind of psyche. Obviously, we know, and I think you pointed this out, Peter, is, no one wants to admit that I don't have the answer, or, oh crap, I don't know what I'm doing. What did you guys find when you guys were running live kind of this live help desk, if you will, or tech support? What were you guys finding as it relates to kind of what these field professionals were asking, where they were running into trouble? What did that look like?
Yeah. So first of all, we still do it. So we still have live tech support. It's still an option, just that people prefer the AI. What we learned, I think, initially was the shocking truth, which is that a large percentage of techs are really undertrained, right, and have a hard time. And so I think that was the biggest sort of shock, was just some of the questions coming at us were really basic, right, very, very basic. And so I think that was a big aha. And then realizing how do we make sure we can help them? Like what is the ways in which we can assist these questions? And so I think, number one, you can totally see the curve of age versus skill, and the lack of ride-alongs, the lack of mentors, the lack of training has really harmed the industry, because the skilled labor gap is really profound, as it gets bigger. And so I think that was the number one thing, is like sort of real evidence of what that really looks like in the field is bigger than you think. And Logan, you've answered thousands of calls. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, the wild thing inside there is that most of the time, even during the tech support calls, what we were finding is that most of the technicians were tracking in the right direction on most of those calls. They were just hesitant to take that next step on what they thought was going to be, hit the switch, am I going to burn something up? Am I going to damage something? Things like that. Now, of course, there's a lot of nuance in that with a lot of the new higher efficiency equipment and things like that. But that's where the AI really helps take the cake, is being able to guide them in to exactly that without taking your other team members offline and affecting their billable efficiency as well. So it's kind of that hesitancy, they had the basic knowledge in some way. They were just hesitant to do the next step in the line there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like they needed to be confirmed in their thinking. And so they needed a means to confirm it, which I think that's right. But half the calls were confirmatory, not like searches. Like, is this right? Am I on the right track? Right. And so there's like giving them that extra benefit of, yeah, no, you got it. That's correct. Let's walk it through.
Yeah. And that's a day-to-day struggle for a service manager. I mean, what's a service manager entail doing for the better part of his day? I mean, they're doing technical support type calls for their internal team. But in the reality of it is that if it's like a next step type question, if we were able to alleviate that hat and let them focus on more revenue producing activity, now we can really help move the business and be able to help move them forward in their position and being able to help better train their team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, it's in a world where we're bringing in a lot of younger guys. To me, I mean, you said there's 20 million different models of like, it's almost one of those things where the confirmatory nature of their questions is more so like, I've seen this on something else. can you confirm that it is the same on this? Where, the one thing I always say is, you can't train experience. And if you can't train experience, yet we need more techs, a tool like this that can assist a technician. And hopefully, to me, I look at it as almost like a confidence builder. Like, oh yeah, okay, I think I know what I'm doing, but let me check and just double check.
You nailed it. Now, what is experience? Experience is a series of confidence affirming actions that let you feel good about that activity. So if you can't learn experience, but you can expedite it, right? By giving more folks more confirmatory actions in their day-to-day existence, their experience is going to do this versus this in terms of their ability to adapt to it. So I think you hit the nail on the head. And so the hardest part in some cases is getting the guys, which has become much easier with AI, because in tech support, they didn't want to admit it. They didn't want to talk to somebody. There was a certain group that did, like the extroverted guys did, but the introverted guys didn't. And now with AI, we opened it up. I mean, just a great stat. It took us 5 years to get 130,000 tech support calls. It took us 5 months to get 130,000 AI questions answered. So that's how fast they use the AI versus tech support.
And then the cool thing there is too, I mean, the funny thing that we get to see on that side, Chad, too, that I get pretty excited about it is like the after hours type questions that kind of come through the AI or even the live side. But mainly on the AI side, you see that you have technicians who are going in and asking questions about maybe a call that they experienced during that day that's plaguing them. We all carry our job home with us some at nighttime. So as a technician, most of the time, we always have that one call during the day that we think stumped us. And they're in there asking questions about it to try to gain more knowledge on that piece of equipment. So if there is a callback, hopefully not, they know what to do the next time, or they have a heads up on maybe a call they have tomorrow. So they're going ahead and asking the question before they get there. And they're actually trying to get a leg up on the efficiency side for the next day. So those are really, really cool insights that we get to see on the technician side there. But even on the live side, I mean, the main game for the live side is that, our guys are super veteran guys that love to be able to help technicians. That's what they thrive off of. So it's not your basic read a line item, do this, do that, just go through a flow chart. They're talking based on their experience level, like you were talking about, because they've been in front of that equipment that they're helping that technician with. So when it comes to that, they're trying to do some on the site kind of training at the same time while they're on that phone call for that short amount of time, because the real goal is we don't want you to have to call back again on that same issue. We want you to learn how to fix it, not just the what you're looking at, but why you're looking at it, to be able to help them even further long term.
As you look at companies who have implemented this successfully, again, getting that buy-in from the technician to use it, I think, we have live tech support here. And I think the one thing that we, if there was a wish of ours, it's to have more people use it. We know more people need it, but they're not. What are the companies that are seeing success with this? How are they getting that adoption with their field professionals?
It's actually been pretty bigger than we expected in terms of the curve, how fast they adopt it. And because the AI is just an easier thing to deal with than humans. So, so what we do typically is we have a, really quick 15, 20, literally a 20-minute session with the techs in a morning meeting. We just walk them through it, show it to them, do a few examples with them. It's so easy to use. I mean, there's no training required. And what always happens is it always breaks down. There's 10% that use it right away and they just start crushing it. Another 30% who are we'll call them early adopters, they're using it, pretty quickly. Then there's the next 230s are the challenge. And that's going to be a function of, how well your team works together, how well the service manager can communicate, and how much, feedback. We give a lot of feedback in terms of, here's who's using, who's not using. So you have that data as an owner or service manager. But that's where it gets a little bit on the company side of how much they're going to push it. Because like anything else, right? You need like 3 or 4 uses before it clicks. And then you're like, oh, that works. I can use that more and more and more. So, we see anywhere between, in some cases up to, 90% of the team using it regularly, but typically it's going to be like 50, 60. And then it's how well can you get that bottom half to use it is really what it comes down to. But the use has been pretty damn good. And most guys either have heard of Bluon, and use the free version. They have some familiarity with it. So it's not like they're learning something. They're just getting more access to tools that they didn't have before. So the use case is pretty straightforward, from the old to the new.
I mean, on the adoption side, it's really just because like Pete was saying, most of the technicians already know about the app, with close to, over 200,000 technicians downloaded the app already before Bluon for Business really ever even came into play here. So now it's really just leadership kind of bringing it back full circle to reintroduce it to them, but show them so many other tools that they can put in their toolbox for, creating more efficiency.
And the master mechanic is by far the most, it's used, that use case is going through the roof. It's once guys get used to it, they just use it for everything, right? Just to confirm their theory. And another cool use case, which just started happening like about a month ago, guys who are on like Service Titan or other platforms that have to put in, hey, here are the 4 things that this service call could have been. Like here was a symptom, it could have been this, this, or this. They can just type that into Master Mechanic, cut and paste, and slap it over. So because Master Mechanic will always give you all the things it could be based upon that symptom. And so it's helping them with their paperwork now in a way that we never even dreamed of, because those guys hate doing that, right? Typing all the potentials in, but it lets them just boom, boom, cut and paste, and off they go.
Yeah, anything to make the paperwork side of things easier is a definite add. One thing I'm thinking about here, and this is not so much a question, but I'm thinking of, these, I don't want to call them nuisance calls, but just their breakers flipped, or, their filters dirty or something like that. And I'm just thinking about, is there a world where, or something you guys have thought about, even if it's not something you have, but just brainstorm with me here. But is there a way to use the database of technical questions in a customer facing place to where, some people may look at it, well, we want to run those service calls. Well, there's also times in the summertime when you don't have enough people to run all those service calls. So is there a way to talk with the customer and get, maybe minor issues solved rather than rolling a truck, and, have some follow up with that or something like that? Is that something that you guys have looked at, or is it more so just been focused on, hey, we just want to help the technician?
Ironically, we've spent a lot of time trying to prevent homeowners from using it, because we get a lot of, angry texts, because that happens on occasion. They'll get a password and they'll sneak in, but not often. But I think to your point, what we have seen happen is, exactly your point, to arm your customer service team with the AI. So now when they get that call, they can type in the symptom, and if it's something simple, they can just tell them to do it, right? And so that you can make your customer service team way more effective by arming them with this tool. It's super simple. They type it in, and boom, the answer is right there. We see a lot of distributors using the tool for exactly that reason, also for their green counter guys to be able to answer questions. But I think it's a great customer service tool, big time, directly to your point. And that way you don't have to, put us into a bad spot where we're giving exposure to homeowners, which is frowned upon pretty aggressively in the industry. But it could be a win-win in that capacity.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I'm just thinking about, every call that we take is recorded. So if you're running that recording up against the database, to your point, then populating, hey, this is the things that it could be. And then basically based on those symptoms, you have a technician that has basically, their AI basically, hey, when we get this means a, emergency service call, we need to get out here. Or, hey, this is something where, hey, shoot the customer this video and it'll show them, hey, they just need to adjust their thermostat, or they need to kick on emergency heat, or, there's a number of different things that how the customer can get by for a hot second until you can get out there, type of thing. So there could be some really cool stuff.
That's such a good idea. You could have the recorded call that came in just kickstart that process. That's a cool idea.
And really I think that was Logan's point earlier, where basically it's taking the customer transcript and bouncing it off of the database to basically give the technician, hey, this is what the customer said, type thing. That could go a bunch of different ways, but interesting stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic there, Chad. I mean, because really, if you think about it, what can be done beyond that? Once we actually see what the generalized question is. Now we know exactly what kind of technician level we need to dispatch to that type of call to.
Absolutely. Just helping you grade out, hey, this technician, we're always looking at, from a technician's skill set, can they go here? Well, the majority of our dispatchers, they didn't spend time in the field. So they're not really sure. But yeah, you could look at it from can it guess kind of technician's skill level based on that? Maybe not giving it to the technician, but giving it to the dispatcher to say, hey, this is what the customer said. This is what it could be. This matches up to this technician's skill set, type of thing. That could be interesting.
That is totally doable. That is a great idea. That's marking. I'm right. That notes are going down for that one.
I like it. Hey, this is what this is for. Right? People always ask me, like, why do you do the podcast? I'm like, well, I get a lot of ideas from it, and you're talking to really smart people, so you're bound to come up with something along the course of the of talking.
Well, see, just like that, Bluon just became dispatchers' best friends too.
There you go. Right? Hey, everybody's using it, right? Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for the time. I know everybody's busy, and really the goal of today was to bring to light a technology that I think can help. I've been on this kind of mini tour here over the last month of really trying to push out there that as leaders, we need to understand the pain of those that we lead in order to relate and then work to solve problems together. So I guess as we close out, what's maybe one thing from each of you that you would leave with, how you hope Bluon kind of solves that, kind of technician pain, and how do we work as leaders of contracting businesses and really even other businesses to help alleviate that and relate with that pain?
First of all, after working with techs now for going on 10 years, they are the best humans in the country by far in terms of just people. But I think what I really like about what we're doing is removing that frustration from them, right? Because techs love to fix stuff, right? They're wired to fix it. That's what they want to do. Get their hands dirty and fix it. That's what gets them their joy, their purpose. So anything that they do that gets in the way of that frustrates them, creates animosity towards the fixing and the job. So if we can remove that frustration by giving them the tools and information they need when they need it, not only are they faster, but they're happier, and happier is better always in terms of activity and benefit to the company. So I think for us, I want to produce a happier, less frustrated tech who by definition is more productive.
And I think on my side, I would just like, more and more, leaders, especially inside the industries, to just think more outside the box, because if we can provide more tools to create more efficiency to your technicians, especially on the technical side, then that means that they're going to be able to focus even more and get even better on the communication side to their actual customers, which, is the heart and soul of the businesses, to be able to help maintain and maximize the profitability for those businesses. So if we're able to help alleviate some of the hats on this side, then you can focus more of your business side on the communication skills and being able to help them become better technicians that are more well-rounded.
That's awesome stuff, guys. I think you both hit the nail on the head as far as, how do we allow them to do what they are best at? Because when they are doing what they're best at, they win because they're doing what they love. The company wins. And ultimately, the customer wins as well because they're able to come up with solutions. There's less recalls, less issues. We can fix problems faster. All of those things, I think, go into really creating a successful partnership. And I can't thank you guys enough for, sharing your time, but also, working on a product that is going to help our field professionals out there in the field. I think that's extremely important. My closing thought would just be, again, to continue to try to find those things that are in your technician's way from doing what they are really, really good at. We ask them to do a lot of things because, yes, it is important to the business, but are there ways with technology, with process procedure that we can ease that pain and allow them to be really, really good? So again, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you found today's discussion helpful, informative as we, continue to look at strategies, stories that fuel both our personal growth and our company's growth. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. And don't forget to leave us a review to tell us what you think. Remember, growth is a journey, and it's all about taking small steps forward every single day. Keep pushing yourself, embracing new challenges, and never stop striving for progress. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and remember, you can't stop the growth.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get connected, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. As always, keep growing out there.